So, hello everyone, and welcome to the first community gathering of yoga readers. We are meeting here after finishing our first book, which was Light on Life by B.K.S. Iyengar. And what I thought we should do today is talk to one another and also listen. I'm very curious about hearing all of you. And I thought that we should start talking about what was the idea behind yoga readers, why I started this community and how it came about. And I would like to hear from all of you why you decided to join. So what were your thoughts, and then why you stayed? Because you might have thought that this is going to give you something and then you were quite disappointed and then you left, but you're still here. So you probably got something out of it, and I would be thrilled to hear what was it that kept you going. So I will start by telling you a bit of my yoga story, as I call it, and then how I got to this idea of reading together, and then why Light on Life. At the end of the meeting, I will reveal our next book that we will start reading in November, which is really close. Okay, so I began practicing as a teenager. At the age of 15, I was really drawn to yoga from a young age. My grandfather, who was a very famous writer in Hungary, told me about yoga. He told me about India, about Hindu gods. And this, for a young girl, was very interesting, and it captivated my mind, the idea that one day I will perhaps even travel to India and then learn about whatever it can give me, meaning to my life, or maybe explanations to experiences I had. So at the age of 15, I got on my yoga mat for the first time, and I don't remember much from that time. I do remember that after that class, I felt that something had happened, something serious had happened. I didn't have words for it, but I felt my body in a different way, and I felt myself differently in the world. And I had an urge to repeat the experience. So the next week I returned, and I kept on coming. I never missed a yoga class. And it was quite rare at the time because none of my friends did yoga. And when I told them that I cannot come to any other social gatherings on Friday mornings because I'm doing a yoga class, they had no idea what I was doing. But I kept on going, and after 2 years, my yoga teacher left Israel and went to France. And I was determined to follow him. And I got his email and I wrote to him, and he said, "Agi, you cannot come to France. You cannot come. You cannot learn from me." And I said, well, then I have to find something else. I have to, if I cannot learn from my teacher, maybe I can learn from the teacher of my teacher. And that kind of stayed in the air. I started my military service, and during the second year of my military service, I signed up for a yoga teacher's teaching course, because I thought maybe there I can find my answers. Maybe I don't have to go all the way to India to learn with the teacher of my teacher. But I was wrong, since my first teacher's course just arose more questions in me. There were, okay, I learned a lot, so I thought, but I had more and more questions about the origins, about how it works, about the significance of it, the transformative potential of it. So after I finished my military service, I hopped on a plane and I went alone to India, and I started looking for that teacher who is still in Pondicherry, south of India in Tamil Nadu, not in the touristic part, but outside of it. Getting there each day was a huge effort as well, with many local buses. And I got to the teacher of my teacher and I knocked on his door and I said, hello, I'm the student of your student and I came here to study with you. And he looked at this 20 years old girl who came knocking on his door. It was a school of yoga where he was teaching only men at the time. Then later he started teaching women, but it was not open for women. It was not open for Western women, and especially not for a 20-year-old girl. But I was very persistent, and he said, you know what? Give me your date of birth and come here on Monday. And he checked my astrological map, and he decided to teach me yoga. I was extremely lucky in that way. But he saw something in that map that allowed him to teach me. So I studied with him for a few months, and I was very sincere. I did everything he taught me. And after that, he said he has to leave for a long trip to the north of India, and that now I have to go back to my country of origin, and that I cannot stay in India longer. It's not my place. I need to start my life and so on. So I left, but I have to say that I returned to that teacher almost every year since then, until COVID. And I did my MA thesis about his community and his teachings. I'll get to that later. So I went on in India. I didn't go straight back to Israel. I went to more ashrams, to more teachers, and I discovered Iyengar yoga as well. And when I returned to Israel, I found an Iyengar yoga teacher, and immediately I signed up and I stayed there for 9 years. And when I could, I signed up also for an Iyengar yoga teacher's class or teacher course, but it was a long way. It was 6 years of studying, as you know, but I was very, very determined that this was it. This was the tradition that will give me the answers for what I was looking for. And at the same time, I was also interested in Sanskrit, because after going to India, okay, there was no Tamil studies at the time at the Hebrew University, but there was a Sanskrit class. And I said, okay, I want to study that. I want to understand the terminology of yoga that I heard everywhere in India, and then even more so in Iyengar yoga classes. All these Sanskrit came up, and I said, I have to get to the core of it. So I signed up for my BA studies. It was philosophy and religions, because Sanskrit and Hindu studies was then under religious studies. And 3 years were up. And I said, I have more questions than answers. I have to go for my MA thesis. So I continued my studies, and that's how I got to my PhD as well. My PhD was then about Iyengar yoga and women, being a woman in Iyengar yoga. I got very curious about that. I interviewed Gita Iyengar 2 times. I interviewed Prashant Iyengar 2 times, Abhijata Iyengar 3 times. I interviewed Sunita. I interviewed about 40 teachers of Iyengar yoga from around the world to really understand how Iyengar yoga suits women, accommodates women, and what I then called women-oriented Iyengar yoga, how that works. So that was my my long yoga story that started in my youth and continued into my late 30s and is still continuing. And when October 7th happened, I froze, and I felt like I cannot move and I cannot breathe. I had to function as a mother. But as I know the deeper layers of myself, I was struggling. And on October 8th, my Iyengar yoga teacher in Israel said, we are having an open yoga class on Zoom, because we were all in our safe rooms with locked doors and locked windows. And she said, there's a yoga class. You should all come. and I participated from my safe room. And after that class, I felt like I can move now. I am in my body again. And on October 9th, she said, we're having again a class. Everybody has to attend. And I attended again through Zoom. Now, as the days passed, you need to see the horrors were just coming out. It's not like we were calming after the storm. We were amidst the storm. It was getting worse and worse because we were getting more informed about what happened on October 7th. By this time, by the way, my partner was no longer in the house. He was in the military, as he was called for duty on October 7th. So on October 9th, after that yoga class, I felt like I can breathe again. And this experience of being out of my body because of trauma, and then regaining the ability to feel myself again, to breathe and to live through just 2 classes in Zoom with my lovely teacher, reminded me the power of yoga and how much it is needed. So it took me a few months to come up with this idea, but I thought I need to reach out. My intellectual way is through books. Why not read together the words, the inspiring words of B.K.S. Iyengar? Why not do it in Hebrew and in English? And this is how Yoga Readers, this lovely project, came to life, through understanding that yoga is not something that we do in our pastime. It's not a hobby. It's our raison d'être. It's our reason for living. It's the tool that helps us to live. And it's how I breathe and how I move in life. Now, reading a book, any book, has a lot of advantages. My mother is a librarian. I told you about my father, who was a famous writer in Hungary. So I was surrounded by books since the day I was born. And reading any book is a great stress reliever. It's a window to a new world, and it calms us in this time of constant screen time, as it's called. And when you read a book, you need 2 hands to hold the book. You cannot read a book and text, or read a book and drive. You have to stop and read the book with 2 hands. Just like when you go on your mat, you can't really do anything else when you're practicing. You're using your body and you're stopping everything else. And then reading a yoga book, a book about yoga, helps us to understand better our practice. It gives us more knowledge about the theory behind things. And then when we go on our mat again, we are again inspired by whatever we read. And maybe when we are reading, we have these aha moments of, oh, that's what I felt on the mat. So reading a yoga book, in my eyes, it has more value than reading a book about something else, anything else. And then reading a book by B.K.S. Iyengar, who is, I think, the biggest yogi of our times, is the best choice. So I'm now eager to hear from all of you about why you joined and why you stayed. Please feel free to open your mics and share whatever.
I will continue since it's the same region, geographical region as Agi. I also live in Israel. And the reason I joined, I'm a teacher, I'm a Iyengar yoga teacher. And the reason I joined the reading group is because spiritually and emotionally, I was just like Agi, but in different times, I experienced, if not a decrease, complete fall down. I only had my physical ability. I only practiced from physical. I lost my spirituality. And I thought, what a great idea to read the book, because the book talks about not the physics, the physical part I get. I practice every day, I'm a very good girl, I do this and that. But I did not feel the connection. Even though I'm a teacher, it's like it lost the meaning. I was doing gymnastics. And I have to say, and I thank you, Agi, from the bottom of my heart, that it really lifted my spirit and it enhanced my practice. Thank you. I'm really in tears now. It really lifted me just when I needed it. And I don't know, I was just doing it because I saw it on Facebook. And the second thing is that I was very happy that I missed the Hebrew reading. We have a group in Israel, which is in Hebrew, and we are going to have, as Agi said, one in English for you guys, for us guys, and in Hebrew as well. And I was very happy that I missed the Hebrew one, because I needed people from outside of this country. This country is in such a chaos and such a drama and such death-oriented that I needed people that are not experiencing what me and Agi and the rest of the 10 million people are practicing. This is why I choose to continue with you in English in the next book rather than going to my Israeli group, just because I need you guys. You mean something to us. You are outside and you are with us, but you are not us. So it's a good match. And I thank each and every one of you for being there and listening and smiling and talking. And it's nice to speak English and not so much Hebrew all the time. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michal.
You're welcome.
So I'll go next. My friend Rachel told me about this great group on Facebook, and I was thinking that's brilliant because I've been practicing Iyengar yoga for many years, and I have taught on and off, but I was always wanting to read more of the philosophy, and I found that a lot of teachers, Iyengar teachers, don't really go into the philosophy in the classes. Like, you might get some workshops where you might take a couple of sutras from Patanjali, and I'm always looking for, the meaning of why we're practicing, even though I do know, Iyengar's, his philosophy is to experience it in the body. And I agree with that. Like, it's not like it was just a physical practice. It definitely was. I was, like you say, I keep feeling myself differently in the world from the practice. But I always wanted to read, but never really had the, I don't know, I suppose it's a little bit overwhelming trying to read it on your own. So then when my friend Rachel told me about this group, I was like, oh, this is perfect. And it has been great because we've taken it chapter by chapter and you've given context. It's been lovely to connect with other people. I always feel really inspired after the class, after the group we meet. It's great because I suppose what I want to do is connect with the higher self. And that's what yoga does, doesn't it? Is rather than staying in our small selves. So for me, it's all about how to just kind of give more meaning to our practice and why are we doing this, and then hopefully because I do want to, really have a disciplined daily practice. That's what my goal is, and I'm hoping that the group, with our continued reading and talking to each other, will help give me that, which it has already. It is doing that. So thank you. Thank you, Agi, and thank you, everybody else.
Thank you, Sophie.
My story is I remember being exposed to yoga on our public broadcasting system. when I was a little girl. I want to say the lady's name was Ilias, and she would wear a leotard and practice yoga. And I would watch and think, oh, that looks weird. And then, I got away from it. And then when I was in university, I ran across a paperback book about yoga, and I was bad. I stole the book from the library. I did. And I took it home and tried to practice, and then I felt guilty, so I did send them money for the book. So I did pay them back a bit, but it fascinated me. And then I fell away from it again, and then we moved, and I started going to a gym for physical fitness, and they had a yoga instructor, and I'm really not sure what she was teaching, but it was fun. It helped me get my mind off my work, because I had a really, really stressful job. I worked in a prison. So, this was a way to have a couple hours every week of just getting out of my mind and into my body. And then I retired, and I was trying to find a yoga studio again. And I happened upon an Iyengar instructor with half a mile away, so I could walk to her class. And she really didn't go into the philosophy and everything, but I would feel so good. I started practicing once a week with her for 90 minutes. And then I thought, I like this. So I started going twice a week. And then I convinced my husband to join. And he would go at a different class time that worked better for his schedule. And he really liked it. So then I started going 3 times a week. We would go together for the Sunday morning class. And we just had a really good practice going in a really nice community. And then we had COVID, and my instructor, who's 10 years older than I am, decided to retire. And she donated all of her equipment to a prison program. So I've been struggling trying to get back into becoming a yogi, or, pretend yogi. And somehow and it's going to make me cry too, I ran across, your invitation. And I thought, okay, here's my teacher. I've been searching.
You're not a pretend yogi, Steph. None of us are here by mistake or by coincidence. We are all bestowed by the grace of Guru himself. So, Steph, you're here. It's not a mistake. And you're a yogi already. The moment Guruji has decided to bestow his blessings on all of us, we are already yogis.
Oh, thank you. So I'm still searching for a studio, and it's amazing. I did find another Iyengar teacher. And now I've got a few things to clear up, and then I'm going to start practicing again, because I need it. I know in Israel you're going through really horrific things. Here in the States, it's getting bumpy. I'm really concerned for for my country. So by having this class, it'll help me focus. I bought Light on Life like 12 years ago to read while I was off work with an injury. And it really didn't stick with me. And when we moved, instead of throwing the book out, I brought it with me. And it's been sitting on my shelf with some other yoga books. And so it was, like I said, when I saw this opportunity, I said, okay, it's time to start again.
Thank you, Steph. I'm so glad you joined us.
Thank you.
And of course, if you want to find an Iyengar yoga teacher, you will.
I believe I have. It's going to be a drive. It will probably take me an hour to get there, but I'm gonna sign up for 6 months and see how it goes.
Good.
That's enough time to make an informed decision on.
I drive sometimes 2 hours each direction for my teacher in Tel Aviv.
Okay.
Near Michal, and Michal drives probably somewhere else. But it's important to find the teacher that is right for you, because there is another teacher 1 block away from me, and that's not the right teacher for me. So I think that's my tapas. That's my my effort. That's where the heat goes. That's where I put my intention to get to my teacher. And when I get there, I'm fully there. I'm fully dedicated to the practice. I go there for myself, right? But she's there to give me the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's worth the drive.
Yeah, I've been exposed to different instructors. I know, have you heard of sound healing? Where we
Yes.
listen to songs and crystal bowls and whatnot. And so I've met another yoga teacher, but she doesn't do Iyengar. But we were combining the sound healing with yin yoga. But to me, that's too far away to drive.
I hope you find the best teacher for you.
Is it okay to like try different studios at the same time?
It's okay.
Well,
It's okay. There are no rules. You can even go to 2 teachers at the same time until you decide which one is best for you. And sometimes the mind will say, oh, she's nice, she's smiling, there is such a good atmosphere, and her incense and her sound healing. And then the other teacher, maybe the facility is not that nice and the smell is not that, but your body feels different. And it takes time for you to realize where is the truth, where is the best feeling for you. And that takes time.
okay, because it was like the first time I walked into my Iyengar studio, pre-COVID, and took the first class with her. I said, this is it. I want to be here. And then when my husband went, he came home and said, I didn't think you'd like a person like that.
Well, the person is a vessel, and the teachings that go into your heart, go into your body. That's the issue. It's not the personality of the teacher. I always think of it as a really good doctor. They can be rude, but if they are good, if they can diagnose, if they can give you the right treatment, that's the doctor I want. I don't want the smiley doctor who then misses half of my problems and just tells me, Agi, it will be okay. I want the fierce doctor like Guruji was. He wasn't always nice.
No, but I can understand, the trauma he had, reading his life story there. But I don't want to hog it.
And I have to say that teachers have moods. So when I met Geeta Ji in her classes, when she was a teacher and I was a student, that was one thing. And when I was interviewing her and she started talking about her mother and her childhood, she was the softest thing that I've ever experienced. She was lovely. She was nice. She took me in. We laughed together. I was so uptight before meeting Geeta Ji, and then when everyone who meets her knows this, okay? She had the outside, the teacher, and she used it because that's how people listened to her. But then when it was one-on-one, it was completely different. And that's also something to keep in mind, that we have a persona when we teach, and teachers they have different days. And when you should experience them for a period of time before you decide. And sometimes it is love from first sight, of course.
Well, again, thank you. I'm so happy I found this group.
Thank you, Steph.
Hi, my name is Sunita, and I think this is my first meeting here. I, as usual, came across Agi's post through Facebook. I'm an Ashtanga yoga teacher, and I've done my medical yoga therapy course. And Iyengar Guruji basically was sitting on my bookshelf for many years. I've always had a love of yoga generally, because I think in most Indians it's just sort of inbuilt, we just go with the flow. Okay, fine, this is our way to keep healthy and things. I used to pick up books because I suffered from sciatica for many years. So I used to pick up books related to yoga. And Iyengar Guruji, of course, this was the best-selling book. It was on my shelf for many years. And when I did my yoga therapy course, we had to learn up a few Patanjali Muni Sutras. That's how the Yoga Darshan opened up to me. And then it led me to this book. Again, I got it out of my bookshelf, and the chapters kept opening and revealing itself, kept opening and revealing itself. And I was like, yeah, you choose a path, you strive to be on the path, and a lot of channels just open up for you. We are all here to heal, and may Guruji's grace always be upon us.
Thank you, Sunita. And you are joining us from where?
I'm joining you all from India, from Pune, Maharashtra state.
So thank you all for sharing. I really believe the power of community. Many of you mentioned it, that I spoke about reading a book and reading a yoga book and reading a book of B.K.S. Iyengar, but reading together, I think that's where the power is, getting the schedule, the reading schedule, but then the reminders. And I wasn't sure, is WhatsApp the right tool? Is Facebook the right tool? How should I get to you? How should I get your attention? And some told me it's like in school, like there is a session, so just before the session they sit down and they read everything. And some have their own pace, and they just, on Sundays, they sit with their tea, I have my chai, and they read their book. And sometimes the focus questions are kind of there, and some felt like it's an assignment, like you have to find the answer to the question, to the focus question. So the power of community, of reading together, and even the thought, for me, it was the thought that other people are also reading what I was reading. The thought that I'm going through this with others that are remote, but it gave me a sense of togetherness. So it wasn't just the schedule and the sessions and the focus questions, but also the feeling of community, which is very much needed in these times. I feel everywhere. So would you like to share a section from the book? I told you about it just yesterday. It was like a surprise, but I believe that after reading a book, you probably marked a piece for yourself or quoted it for others. So whoever wants, you can read it and then tell us why you chose that part.
Actually, I did not choose the part. I took the book out from the shelf, and the page just opened up, for me. And every word of his, every chapter is a gem, okay? Because like you said, I took the book in one sitting, and there were lots of aha moments. Wow, wow, wow. It was just unraveling one after the other. So there was no particular, passage which really struck a chord. It was a whole book. But I opened this book and it came down to this page, and I found it very relevant because we are blessed with the gift of breath. And, the more we work on it, the more we are connected within ourselves, the more we are able to rise, the more our consciousness rises, and we become a part of the whole human consciousness. So I think as an individual, that is the only part that we can work upon, because the external, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of strife, there's a lot of circus happening everywhere. But what are we doing within ourselves? So that is what Iyengar Guruji focuses on continuously. And like we said, there is no end to it. It is Nairantarya, it is continuous till the end of a last breath. Okay, so this is one paragraph. Bear with me, please. It is impossible when we turn our attention to the inner movement of breath to use our senses externally at the same time. You cannot also be thinking that you must stop at the supermarket on the way home after work. Pranayama is the beginning of withdrawal from the external engagement of the mind and senses. That is why it brings peacefulness. It is a hinge between extroversion and introversion. When you start asana practice, you gain increased confidence, poise, self-assurance, and the radiance of health. After all, energy is in itself an attractive quality. By all means, enjoy these benefits in your contact with the world. But yoga also asks us inwardly to invest some of what we have gained. That is introversion in its positive sense, not a shying away from the world out of feelings of inadequacy, but a desire to explore your inner world. The breath, working in the sheath of the physiological body, serves as a bridge between the body and the mind. That's it.
Thank you, Sunita.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a section to read. It's the bottom of 184 and the top of 185. As we saw in chapter 3, there are essentially two types of retention and of realization. At the full after inhalation and on empty after exhalation. In the process of inhalation, it is the self that comes up as the breath goes in. In retention, it is the self that enfolds the frontier of the body in union with the self. In this state, there is a full experience of self that is egoless, but where the ego remains dormant and ready to re-express itself. After inhalation, the sheaths of the self move toward the self. As the air moves out, these sheaths move in. Here, there is a full experience of uniting with the self, in which the ego is absent and its potential for selfish action is expunged. Inhalation is a realization of the totality of being, swelling out from the core toward the periphery. It is the fullest realization of what is implied by being incarnate, spirit made flesh on this earth. It brings the discovery of the individual soul. It brings awareness of every cell in one's being. From the core of being, the individual soul, Jivatman, one has fulfilled the implication of being chosen to be born. It is the experience of all of oneself, from innermost to outermost, from subtlest to grossest. That's bottom of 184, top of 185. And I just thought that was an important, there are many, but I particularly like that one. And I think because I also don't do enough breath retention. It's something else I avoid is this kumbhaka. And I don't know why it's not so, it's not hard, but I guess it is hard because I don't, I don't do it. So I think this year I would like to be able to practice more pranayama. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I agree, me too, with the pranayama. It's hard to do both, isn't it? Like, you know, you try to get the asana practice in and you don't have time for the pranayama, but I'd love to develop the pranayama as well. And this book is very inspiring for that. Can I just read the first paragraph on chapter 7, Living in Freedom, from 227? And like Sunita, I didn't have like one particular, there was so much to this, everything was just so inspiring, but important. But I just think this paragraph means a lot. So when many of us, so it's 227, when many of us think of freedom, we believe that it means the pursuit of happiness. Certainly political freedom, as Gandhiji knew, is essential, as the ability to direct our lives is essential for our ability to reach our full potential. Economic freedom is also important, for grinding poverty makes it difficult to think of the life of the spirit. But equally important to political and economic freedom is spiritual freedom. Spiritual freedom actually requires greater self-control and the ability to direct our lives in the right direction. This is the ultimate freedom, which is the fusion of our individual soul with the universal soul, as we release our own wants and wishes for a higher purpose and a higher knowledge of the will of the Absolute in our lives. And for me, that just sums it all up really. That's why we practice yoga. And, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in, you know, the sort of our wants, thinking that that's going to make us happy, but actually having it's to, you know, not to do what you want that makes you happy, but to do what your soul wants. And that's often where the mind gets in the way, because, you know, my mind will tell me, oh, you know, there's so much resistance to practice, and not always, but when you can just get on the mat and the discipline actually gives you that freedom. It's not we think of discipline as maybe being something negative, but it's if I try to look at it as a way of actually it's gives you freedom, doesn't it? Because you're devoting your energy to what matters. And then when you're on the mat, you do get in touch with, as the mind quietens and the fluctuations of the mind quieten, you get in touch with that, knowledge, or it's hard to talk about it, whatever that is out there, the intuition, the higher awareness. Does that make sense? It means something to me anyway. So.
Your own experience, of course, it makes sense.
I think discipline is a fodder towards, a higher consciousness. So unless you have discipline, this is the yama and niyama. That is the first two aspects of Ashtanga Yoga, which Patanjali Muni has ascribed. Without that, you cannot get into asana. So asana is basically to free your body. Only then can you actually identify and go in line with your spirit. Otherwise, if your body is detached from your spirit in terms of vyadi or other concerns, it's very difficult. So discipline is our fodder. It is needed. It is the the fertilizer that you put in for you to start your asanas.
Well said, thank you.
So the first three limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, which he said about the yama and the niyamas, your physical conduct and your social conduct matters very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else wants to read a section? Paragraph?
I don't have the book with me because I am in a different town and the book I didn't know will be required. However, I remember so much that I don't know if I can quote, and maybe I made it up, but that was my understanding. I think it's chapter 7, but I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. He talks about the self in capital S and the self in lowercase. I don't know if he actually meant what I understood. I think I understood, but what I understood is that the capital S has to do with Prakriti, and the lower capital is with Purusha. In other words, if I'm depressed, or if I'm hungry and I want to eat an ice cream, or if I'm angry or whatever, I think often, since I read it, who's talking from my throat? Is it the capital S in self, or is it the lower? Is it me and my external facades, or is it me, the inside me, the core of me, the essence of me? And sometimes if I listen to my question, I not sometimes, I always know whether it's the ego or whether it's me. And then I know if how to react, because I always react, especially in a wartime. You always react. You always in hysteria, kind of. And sometimes, so this capital S and small s, if I understood it properly, I don't know, but it's great. So that's.
Thank you, Michal. You did get the difference between the two. So one is the ultimate, and one is the relative. One is our everyday self, and one is the ultimate self. But just because it's recorded, I have to say that the ultimate self is the big case S, and the capital S.
The opposite
and
of what I
the
said.
everyday self that we understand, I understand as Agi, this body, these thoughts, my memories. That's the lowercase s. That's the everyday s.
So the opposite of what I said.
But your understanding is correct, that there are two kinds of self, and that we need to pause and ask. Yes.
So
yoga is known to be experiential science. I mean, it is only based upon your experience. I cannot tell you what you're feeling, and you cannot tell me what I'm feeling. So when you are liberated, you know that you are a yogi, because it is an experience that is talking. So it is your self-experience. So yoga is experiential science. So it's open to interpretation. The gurus have all written their books. The wisdom is all out there. But finally, it is your interpretation of the subject as it talks to you. and not probably as how he must have even meant it. So you're on the right path.
I disagree, but that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wants to share a bit from the book? Okay, so you are all wondering, so what is the next book? What is the next book? So before telling you what is the next book, I'll tell you about what I planned for us. I'm planning on continuing the WhatsApp group, and I'm planning on continuing the Facebook group. But I feel like I cannot do the same on both platforms, but that I will put more of the textual stuff up on Facebook with links on WhatsApp. So like the summary that I put also on our webpage and on Facebook, and I'll just put in links. I think that will be less like overwhelming when you open your WhatsApp, and it's maybe not even that nice to read the summary on your WhatsApp with read more and all of that. And before we started, Steph said something that actually correlates with what I was thinking, is that we should have like a glossary for all the Sanskrit terminology. Now, Light on Life did not have a glossary, but it did have a lot of Sanskrit in it. And the next book has a glossary. So what I thought is to have in each chapter one or maybe even two terms that we can elaborate on. And then as we go through one chapter, one after the other, we can better understand a certain term. Like I cannot take all the terms he's talking about and then discuss them, but maybe slowly, book by book, we can build up something like that. So our first book was Light on Life. Many ask me why it is not Light on Yoga. And the reason was that I wanted to talk about life. I wanted us to have a book that connects yoga to our everyday life. And I think the book does this marvelously. Then others asked me, are we going to read Light on Pranayama? And that book is very practical. It has beautiful theoretical parts in it, but then we have to really sift through the practical bits and really read only the theory. And that's a lot to do, and maybe it's the wrong thing to do with that book. Maybe that book should be practiced, experienced, and then read. So our next book is The Tree of Yoga. So many of you guessed correctly. Yes. And I believe most of you have it at home. And I have a story to share about this book. Oh, yes. So Sophie and Steph have it. Michal, you have it as well, right? Michal has it at home. We have enough time to get it. And in Israel, we didn't have it. It was out of print for 10 years in Hebrew. And I contacted the publisher, and I told the publisher about our project. And I contacted a yoga store in Israel that sells yoga books and equipment. And the book was republished in September because of our reading community. So it's quite amazing that it happened in Israel in this time as well. But in English, it is much easier to get it. But now in Hebrew, it's also easy to get. And it's much thinner than the previous book. So less reading. And it's much easier as well, because you said today and others wrote to me as well that it was a bit overwhelming to start with Light on Life. Maybe it was like a test to see who is determined enough to go chapter by chapter and reading the whole book. And we will start in November. So I will send you reminders. And I hope to send you links to more information about terms that we meet, yogic terms, yogic concepts or theories that we are reading through the book. And whoever wants to help, whoever wants to take part in these organizing the materials or finding more relevant links, you can contact me. I will be happy to have your help. And of course, I'm reminding you again to reach out to your Iyengar Yoga associations and to invite more teachers to join us as we continue our reading. So thank you all.
Thank you, Agi, for the wonderful platform. May you continue to remain blessed and lead us all to the light.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.